This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Place where glitter vampires don't grow up to be Batman. We're bringing you the Nerdy Manroom show with your hosts, Hassel and Monster. Monster, this week we have an amazing, uber talented special guest on our show, Mr. Daniel Garcia. We're going to talk about Xyber Ronin, his upcoming Kickstarter program for an amazing title and a book that we are really excited about. We want to spread the word and get this story out there because it's such a great interview and such a great book. But tell us a little bit about our sponsor who makes all this possible.
Yeah, so we want to thank first our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles. They have their store located in Tifton, Georgia. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com or on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles. Visit them for all your nerdy needs, from comics to Legos, trading cards, toys, games, and more. Help them support the local artist community through their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And as Hassel was talking, we were trying to do that this week with our special guest star, Mr. Daniel Garcia, talking about his independent comic. And super nice guy, great conversation with him. And we will actually cut to that after the news. We did pre-record it, so after the news, we'll cut to that, and then we'll come back and finish off with some nerd out. And I think Hassel, you got a little bit of con news from this past week as well, too.
Yeah, well, I went to. Me and the lovely, we went to the Atlanta Days of the Dead 2022, and we had an amazing time. Met a lot of great people there. Met some of my childhood heroes. I got the mint configuration signed by Doug Bradley, aka Pinhead. So now I have Pinhead and Clive Barker's signature on the same box. So it is truly a match made in hell. I got to meet Kane Hodder again, Derek Mears again. I had them both sign my hockey mask along with Tom Savini, the creator of the first original Jason makeup. So that was pretty cool to have, all three of those on the same thing. I met Mr. Tony Moran, the original face of Michael Myers. Super great guy. Hopefully we're going to have a really, really big announcement pretty soon regarding him and Fright Club, which is a company that is putting out a VR Halloween game type deal, with NFTs and things of this thing. Well, we won't go too much into that, but met some really great people. Got to chop it up a little bit with the lead singer from Pantera and Bill Mosby for a little while about a duo album they're going to do with some ballads. I thought that was pretty funny Sunday when we were just shooting the shit a little bit. It was a great time. Like I said, it was her first con. She got a small taste of our world, so to speak, and we met a lot of really cool people there. Seen some friends there. Our buddy Conroy was there. He was there with the voice of Mojo Jojo and Scream, and he was sitting there with the very talented actor that played Super Freddy and In the Hills Have Eyes and a few other things. So we had a great time.
Yeah, and everybody stay tuned for more in later episodes. We might have some more news that's coming out of that con visit. So make sure you tune in and catch that when possible. And we'll share it as soon as we have more details. But for now, we'll let it go there. And we'll skip on over to our normal news. And Hassel, I think you had some sports news you wanted to share with us this week.
Yeah, just breaking today, the commissioner of baseball, he gets a DS award for being a shithead, and they've already said that the talks have fell through between the owners and the players' union today, and at the very minimal, after already announcing we're going to miss spring training, which was, no biggie, we're at least going to miss the first two series of games. So we're not sure how far this is going to rock on. It's looking more and more like if we get a season, it'll be post All-Star game era time frame, so to speak. So that's no bueno. Not real happy about that. In AEW news, last week MJF and CM Punk had an incredible segment if you haven't seen it, Monster, I encourage you to go find this. MJF comes out there, and he's such a prick. You hate him, but I mean, he grabs the whole audience by the heart, and you almost feel for him by the end of this promo. And even Punk comes out here, he comes out with no music to sell it, and he's like, "Hey, was this real?" It's a very, very good segment. If you haven't seen it,
I've seen bits and pieces. I have not seen the whole thing. I've seen bits and pieces, and I've heard all of it, especially how they went to the point of taking the heel and playing him as a sympathetic heel, so much so that even the babyface came out and said, "Is this a real thing? What's going on here?"
Yeah, it was kind of like his origin story, like why he's such a miserable prick today. It's a great segment. Anybody who hasn't seen it, even if you were a wrestling fan and you haven't been in years, I encourage you to YouTube this. It's just a great watch. WWE news, we didn't have a lot noteworthy, so to speak. But last night, Edge, last 2 weeks he's been coming out challenging. He wanted somebody. And, teased it last week by saying he wanted, somebody who was spectacular, phenomenal. And so pretty well, the seeds were planted that it was going to be AJ Styles. And he comes out there and he's, running things down. And finally, AJ answers the call. And he comes out there. AJ has been a heel for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And, the first thing that, Edge tells him is that he don't want the chicken shit that's been playing tag team partner. He wants the world champion AJ Styles. And, you can tell AJ's fired up, and then he slaps the fire out of him. And AJ, then they start to have a little physicality. AJ makes the comeback, almost his phenomenal forearm. Then Edge, he turns full-blown heel. Kicks him in the balls, puts the 1-4 on him, and then next thing you know, he puts a couple of concertos on him. So we had a double turn last night, and I mean that is set up to be a phenomenal match.
It will probably be one of your premier matches for.
If it doesn't steal the show, I will be surprised, because let's just face it, anything AJ Styles is in, he can work with a broom. And Edge, since he's come back, he has been spot on. His matches are great. I mean, he looks haggard and old in the face because of his diet regimen, I believe, but I'm excited for it. I mean, it'll be, if they put that on night one, that's the only way I watch both nights of WrestleMania. Because I've already heard that, I guess Ronda and Charlotte's the main event for night one, and Roman and Brock night two. So right there, that told me, okay, I'm watching night two. I'm not studying night one, because we know how that's going to go. Ronda's getting a clean win.
Yeah.
So on. I mean, it's as predictable as can be, but if they put this match on night one, I'm gonna have to.
Gonna make you break down and watch it, huh?
Oh yeah. But man, that's pretty much all I had in sports this week. It's been kind of a slow week, so to speak.
Yeah, and luckily for us, it has been a slower week for news in general, because we've had a couple of really packed ones. But we
ask forgiveness, because we know we've had some episodes this long with news. So thank you guys for bearing with us.
Since you brought up watching something, I put this under our movie and TV news, because as we make notes, we kind of categorize things. And while this is not necessarily, it kind of is and kind of isn't, but the Royal Albert Hall is going to show Star Wars Return of the Jedi with the London Symphony Orchestra live in concert September 23rd through the 25th. This was supposed to happen like 2 years ago and got canceled due to the pandemic, and it's just now come back around. So I wish they would do that in the States, because I would actually pay to go watch that. But that's coming up over there in September. We didn't really have a lot of video game information this week or news, but we do have some toy news, and we'll kick that off with Hiya Toys revealed their Judge Dredd, Judge Mortis 1/18th scale figure. No order details that I've seen on that yet. Interesting looking piece, but honestly, I'm beginning to wonder if their 1/18th scale is full on actionable figures and with points of articulation, because this one looks like it has none, but it may just be the way it's made. Judge Mortis is really just nothing more than a skeleton in a Judge Dredd style outfit, so it's kind of hard to tell. Is he mobile or not?
It's Judge Death or whatever. I think he's had several names.
We do have some announcements from NECA, and I know we tried to cover some of the stuff last week that was coming out, and some of it we missed, but we said we'd try to share with you when it went up for pre-order, and right now we've got Gargoyles Hudson is up for pre-order with a September release date priced at $41.99, and Ninja Turtles Last Ronin Unarmored without all the armor on is up for pre-order. That comes out in August, and it's a $37.99 price tag. Skipping over to Mattel, though, we've got some Masters of the Universe information. We had leaks of listings for the new upcoming Origins and Masterverse releases, so there's no official photos or announcements of these. These are just what's coming out that we have heard as rumors, so take it with a grain of salt. But for Origins, we've got a wave with Mantana, Whiplash, King Randor, mini comic version of Trapjaw, which is going to be the comic book colored version. And then from the Sunman line, we were supposed to have Pighead and Digitino. Now, we heard breaking news today that the Sunman line is actually being delayed, so all those figures from that might not be in the waves they were supposed to be. Not really sure why.
I hope they're retooling the Sunman head. Because that is not the most... Oh my goodness. They missed the ship on that one there.
Yeah. And along with that, I think we've got an exclusive that's going to be a Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth exclusive only. It's a mystery figure, so we don't know who it is, but it comes with Zoar, the Falcon, and it's a deluxe set, so more to come on that as it comes out. But again, these are just rumors, so that could change before it hits. Masterverse Wave 6, we do have Frosta, Sunman, and the Masterverse, the larger versions. Battle Armor, He-Man, and Jitsu that are scheduled to be the next wave coming out for there. Again, no other details. It's still just rumors. But while we're on this, I did find another breaking item that I think I forgot to share with you, Hassel. The Viking, He-Man, and Barbarian Skeletor did go up for pre-order today.
Okay, I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah, both of those are listed on Big Bad at $23.99 a piece, and I think they come out, say, in March or April.
It's not bad then.
Skipping over to Sideshow Collectibles and some Star Wars stuff, we've got a model of Ahsoka Tano versus Darth Maul diorama. That is up for pre-order, expected to come out sometime between September and November of this year, with a nice hefty price tag of $595.
Hefty is an understatement.
Now, it is a beautiful piece, but that's a little outside my price range, so I don't believe I'll be partaking.
Negative Ghost Rider.
Continuing on with the Toy Fair, virtual Toy Fair in place of real Toy Fair reveals we've been getting. Storm Collectibles revealed their Mortal Kombat 1/6 scale, which is roughly the 12-inch figures. The first two that they're releasing are Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Now, these look really cool. Again, I don't really have much space for 12-inch figures, but if I was, these would probably be ones that would make my shelf because these were awesome looking with great effects. Hot Toys also revealed a 1/6 scale Peacemaker from DC Comics. That one's up for pre-order as well right now. July release.
I gotta ask a question.
At a huge price tag. Go ahead.
Why is his tongue out? Does he have? Does the tongue fucking move, or has he got alternate heads with the tongue this way and this way?
I think he has alternate heads with and without the tongue out. I'm not sure, but that's an expensive figure.
Is that a big thing in the show? I mean, does he walk around the show with his tongue out 90% of the time or something?
No. He walks around and talks shit most of the show, but that's about the extent.
Well, yeah, I've gathered this, and like I said, I am behind, and I have to catch up. But when you have two alternate heads, where the one you got 6 miles of tongue this way, where Gene Simmons would be envious, and then the other one this way, it's like. Come on. Yeah,
I regardless of that, I wouldn't have been in for it anyway. It's a $290 price tag for one single figure, so that's too much for me. Even for a 12-inch figure, that's just But so let's get back over to we do have some more of the Toy Fair events. McFarlane did his event this weekend called his winter showcase event. So in this event, he revealed several things. Some of them are for pre-order, some are not. I think the first one we'll share is not up for pre-order. It's called DC Page Punchers. These are smaller figures. They didn't give the detail on the size, but if you look at them in relation to how they were shown, they look to be about the 3.75 inch or 4 inch scale. They're minimally articulated, but they're they're meant, I think, for a younger crowd because they're also packaged with a comic that you can read. The first wave that he shared was Batman, Superman, Flash, Black Adam. They're all expected to be around $10 a piece, but no order details are up there yet for those. We did, however, get to see some DC Multiverse figures, and these are actually up for pre-sale now. So we actually got to see Duke Thomas from Dark Knight's Metal, which I think we've talked about a couple of these before, including him and the Batman Who Laughs as Batman before he was wearing the full trench coat, mafia, whatever it was he was wearing.
Before he got skeletal.
Yeah. And a Future State Ghostmaker was the new reveal out of that set. And those are up for pre-order right now for a July release date, and they're priced at normal Multiverse figure price of $20 each.
Those actually look pretty good. I figures I'm going to go in for, but they look pretty good.
They look good. I think the Ghostmaker is the coolest looking one to me.
Yeah, by far.
But that's just because I have no connection to any of and I really don't have much connection to him, but it's still a more interesting character to me than the other two. Quite honestly,
without knowing anything about him, he's someone that if you just plunged him into a book, whether they made him hero or villain, I would read it. He's just a cool looking concept, from that.
He reminds me of Azrael. He's a cool looking vigilante figure. Batman Who Laughs is Batman. I'm sick of seeing Batman Who Laughs. I really didn't care for the character when he was in the books. I really don't need any figures of him. And the Duke Thomas one, while it looks cool, it looks like Batman in armor. And how I even know that's Duke Thomas?
And the medieval helmet, I don't dig none of the medieval shit myself. But like I said, Batman Laugh. I remember when he first showed in Justice League. Okay, it was kind of cool, but they have just shoved it down. He's been the John Cena of DC Universe for the last 2.5, 3 years. He's been shoved down our damn throats. Yeah, with his tongue out.
Matter of fact, the moment through a picture, his tongue was out.
Jesus Christ, it's terrible.
But while we're speaking about the Batman Who Laughs, we did get some mega figures shown too. And the first one is the Joker Dragon. We've talked about it before. Again, not something that I could foresee anybody really needing, but it is up for sale now. It's a July release date, and it's priced at $33. And then we got the Killer Croc and Man Bat. We've talked about those mega figs before. $42 each, August release date. Those actually look really good. If you're a fan of Batman villains, they would be good to add to your collection. And then we got the announcement that there will be Black Adam movie wave. They announced all the characters, but they didn't share any photos or anything of them. I imagine they're still in production at this point, or just keeping them back.
I'm curious about that Black Adam variant hero version.
I wonder if one's just got a cape or something is what it sounds like to me. But I'm sure they're not showing them because you got to keep the spoilers away from the movie at this point.
Yeah.
But we do also have, besides Black Adam that you mentioned, we've got Hawkman. There's a Dr. Fate and an unmasked Dr. Fate variant. There's Cyclone. Now there's a normal size Atom Smasher, and then we've got a mega figure of Atom Smasher and Sabak. So big reveal there that Sabak is going to be in the movie as possibly a villain.
That is big.
Because that had not been mentioned anywhere that I've seen before. I even went back and looked at some other stuff and never saw anything about him mentioned. So,
well, you almost had to wonder who was going to be the main antagonist of the movie anyways. Because, Black Adam's going to be an anti-hero. It's without saying. He's going to start the movie out. The JSA is going to show up and, because they're just going to assume. And then eventually they'll team up against someone, which apparently will be Sabak. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and that makes me even more excited for the movie because I think that's a great character for him to go against if you're going to put him in there and he's not fighting Shazam, right? So, or as I prefer, Captain Marvel. But
just a random question, Monster. How well do you think this movie does if you don't have at least a post-credit scene with Shazam?
I don't know if it hurts this one just because, yes, Black Adam is not as well known as a lot of your other DC characters. In the grand scheme of mainstream media, Black Adam's not a huge character, but it's The Rock. Probably the biggest movie star you've got right now.
Right, he is, without a doubt, the biggest action star on the planet right now.
Yeah.
He is the mid-2000s to now version of Arnold Schwarzenegger in 80s. So, hey, I'm not going to knock him on that, but I do feel like it's going to be a deal where, you know how it is when you watch a movie, and you spend the entire movie looking for something particular that you just speculate is going to be there because of whatever the movie may be or story. So you're like looking for a particular point, and then it never happens, and you feel cheated at the end. So I feel like if they don't address the elephant in the room to say, look, he's not in this, just to tell you. 'Cause I mean, like, they can throw Superman in there and you're still going to feel somewhat cheated.
Maybe so, but I think I don't think it will hurt the box office. It may hurt the fans more than anything, but the box office numbers, it's not going to hurt that. The Rock, The Rock is going to carry the box office numbers regardless. But
it's going to do well.
Yeah,
very well.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Speaking of, I don't think we even put this in here in the news, but just a reminder, the Batman does start this weekend, so anyone who wants to go see it. And I've been hearing reviews, and I got to tell you, all the reviews I've heard while they're trying to say it's good, it almost feels like the way they're talking about it, when you watch it, they almost feel obligated to say it is, even though it might not really be. I will probably go see it this weekend just to see how it is, but
I seen a brief interview with the Glitter Vampire, and he's, given a brief take on his Batman. I wanted to vomit.
The one thing that I've heard said that I think if they carry on with this and it's accurate will be probably the best thing for Robert Pattinson himself in the film, is they're saying that, hey, whereas most Batman movies is someone is playing Bruce Wayne and they're playing Batman, they want you to know it's them playing Batman, so they're always constantly taking the mask off. Short of Michael Keaton, who really didn't do that a whole lot in the '89 one, but everybody else take the mask off and it's him. In this one, they're like, every chance he gets, they're putting him back in the mask and saying, be a detective and be Batman in this mask, and he doesn't take it off as often to be Bruce Wayne. So in that respect, I'll give him some props if he carries it.
I will give, if that's the case, I will give him some props. I will say that was the only flaw I found, especially with this last Spider-Man movie. Every damn time they got a chance to take their mask off, they did. I mean, you didn't need to do that. It's them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you read damn Spider-Man, he's not running around half the issue with his mask off.
No. That might be blowing half off his face, but from a pumpkin bomb, but that's about the extent of that.
Well, we're there to see whatever the hero is. We want him in full costume.
Yeah.
We know who the actor is behind it. I mean, look at the damn Mandalorian. The Star has only got 2 scenes without his mask. Come on. And we know he's an established star. It's the Viper from Game of Thrones. We know. We don't need to see him without the damn mask.
Before we delve too far down that rabbit hole, because I know where we'll end up going, and it'll take us a whole show to diss the entire movie. But let's jump back over to our toy news. And McFarlane's last bit of reveals for his showcase event were some new Spawn figures. We got pre-orders up for, I believe, all of these except for the Kickstarter one. But on the regular releases, he's got Haunt, Raven Spawn, and Ninja Spawn, all at $25 a piece for a July release date. There's a deluxe Spawn with a throne for $42 that's coming out in July, which I thought that one looked cool until I saw the figure stands up and the cape doesn't go with it. The cape is molded to the chair. So he's got like the collar of his cape is, and like this much of it, like right around his shoulders, all that comes up with him. Yeah, it's almost like the I can't put this Batman cape on while he's got arms, so take his arms off. It's that same effect. And then the last
fucking El Libre.
Yeah, the last figure that they showed was Overkill, which is another deluxe figure. He's $55 coming out in July. And then they showed they've mentioned before, Todd has at his next Kickstarter is Medieval Spawn, so he showed a teaser by showing it from the back, and all you saw was the upper part of his back. So I don't know how much of a teaser that really was, because they've already said that's who it is, but that's all they gave on that one that I saw. But
I've seen the Shield. They've teased the Shield on Instagram. It may have been Twitter. I'm not sure, but I've seen the Shield. But it's Todd McFarlane. Does he really have to do a Kickstarter?
Yeah.
I mean, why not just say, hey, this is our version of HasLab?
Yeah, that's what I think it's supposed to be, but I don't know why they're using the term Kickstarter, unless that's just the platform they're using, and then I don't really get it. But
me either.
Quick couple of new comic news things, and then we'll get into our interview. So Marvel has released a couple of upcoming 5-issue miniseries starting in June. The first one is called Genis Fell. It's the son of the original Captain Marvel returning. I think this one is set in modern times, but it is being written by Peter David, who was the writer for pretty much all of Genis Fell's original run. But the synopsis is that they're bringing Rick Jones back, and him and Genis Fell are back together, and they've got to figure out how to help each other out and figure out why they're both there. Because before, if you remember before, they were linked to each other and had to hit the negative bands to change places. But now they're both in the same place at the same time, and they're both going to fade from existence if they don't fix the issue, whatever it is.
Rick Jones, bitch.
And then we've got Marvel teaming up with Fortnite again for a 5-issue miniseries. And this is not the first one they've done, but it's Fortnite, Marvel, Zero War, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Shuri teaming up with Fortnite characters to hunt down what they're calling the Zero Shard, which is something that can turn the tide of the battle in the 0 Point War, which is basically what the game is about, I guess, is the best way to say it.
I hope the Fortnite community brings in enough money for them to print this shit.
Dude, they will. I don't know. So, especially if they do like what they did with the Marvel one, the DC one, I'm sure they will. So, the Batman Fortnite crossover they did, first of all, did give you a few panels of Batman versus Snake Eyes, which was awesome to see, I got to admit.
Yeah.
But every issue of the book had a code for something for Fortnite, for another weapon or a new skin.
See, that's cheating right there.
And it sells the entire book because everywhere we went to get it, because my son wanted these really bad, and I didn't know they were, when they first came out, you could not pre-order them like you could everything else, how I normally order. So we had to go to the local comic store and get them. And the first 2 issues, when they came out, because they were coming out weekly, I was out of town. When we went to get them, the first 2 issues were sold out everywhere except for this one store we found where they were limiting people to buying 1 copy a piece. Because people were buying them and selling the codes.
I will say this, and I'm not a, you know me, I'm not a Fortniter. You know, my son is. I don't care about it, but I will commend them on the fact that you couldn't pre-order it. You had to get your ass into a comic book store, because that right there sparks, and that's what keeps these comic book stores alive.
Yeah,
you had to get off your ass and go to a comic store. I commend that there, so my hat's off to them for that.
Yeah, and then I think we ended up buying the hardcover of that too for him, because there was another code inside of it. Now it turned out to be the same code that you got if you redeem all 5 codes from all 5 issues. So this was an ultimate code to get all 5 of those, but he already got them because he redeemed all 5. I imagine this series will come with codes and new stuff in the game, because I think they just released a Gambit and Rogue skin and stuff in the game in the past couple of weeks too. And
I've seen some of their skins; they look really great. I mean, they've had John Wick and various other characters that really intrigued me. Ghost Rider. I just can't get into the game. I've watched it be played, and like my son, God bless him, he'll be like hitting 3,000 buttons and just building this damn thing up to the Tower of Babel, and it's like, yeah, I can't watch the more kid. I'm about to have a seizure.
Yeah, I can't get it.
I need something slower.
I can't.
I need Madden. Let me cut Madden 22 on, and I'm fine.
Yeah, I can't get into it either. But again, he loves it, and I'm sure we'll end up with these Marvel ones. But I'm sure they'll sell just because they'll probably put codes in them. But with that, I think that ends up all of our news. Like I said, thankfully, it was a slow news week. It wasn't one of the rough ones this time. But with that, let's jump straight over and Hassel. How about you introduce them to our interview?
All right, everybody. We're here with a very talented Mr. Daniel Garcia. We're so excited to have you on board today. Monster, give us a little tagline here, baby.
Yeah, well, we've got Mr. Daniel Garcia, indie comic enthusiast, fan of all things considered nerdy, numbed out horror fan, creator of Xyber Ronin, El Martillo, and if I say any of these wrong, correct me, and Covert Action Cyber Baboon. I will eventually get it right. That's a tongue twister for me.
You're good. You're good.
Novice fan of philosophy and a white belt of hundreds of martial arts, including life. And you can find him on Facebook at Daniel Garcia and on Instagram at D Garcia Comics. And I'll try to remember to ask you again at the end of the recording here to tell us those again, and anywhere else we can find you. But sometimes my brain doesn't work, and I've been at work for a lot of hours a day. So if I forget to ask, just break in and tell us anytime.
No worries, man. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, and we always have questions and stuff, and I think like we were telling you before we even started recording, we like these conversations to be organic and questions come as they do. But to start off, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know Hassel and I have talked to you on social media, but this is the first chance we get to talk to you in person.
Yeah, no, thanks again. Thanks for having me on. I know that it could be a big deal finding people for indie comic creators. I think it could be a big deal for us, coming onto a podcast to talk to individuals such as yourselves who have these podcasts. And I know I've looked at your other podcasts in the past, and I know that you've had on much more talented people than myself. I like to consider. So, even being considered to be on is great. And what me and Hassel were discussing I think a few weeks back, was with this upcoming Kickstarter that we have coming up. I'd like to put something in there about the Nerdy Manroom, in one of the books, kind of like as like a promo piece for you guys. And then I'm also promoting a lot of the artists that have helped me get to where I am today, because I feel like paying it forward is a big thing for me, and not just reaping hopefully some rewards, right, and some benefits of what I'm doing, but also paying that forward and helping other people out. Even if 10 people read the book and one of the artists happens to get commissioned because of that and the art, I think I've done my job, so that's a big piece of it for me. Or someone jumps onto your podcast and maybe helps you guys out. To me, that's the biggest thing, is just helping out and paying it forward. So,
well, I've seen the art and I've seen the concept. There's going to be a lot more than 10 people read this book, I promise.
Thanks,
once
man.
you get this thing going, it's going to be big.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. I'm actually wearing a Xyber Ronin shirt, if you can see it. And we
sweet.
actually, yeah, we had a few of those made, and then I got some magnets made too, which are pretty cool, and then we got some pins made also. So it was
sweet.
Yeah. So, and my girlfriend has been a big she's been a big influence on me, even getting this stuff started. So I want to thank her also. She's been fantastic with the whole thing. So Carrie, thank you for even helping out with getting this started. And then to talk about me a little bit, man, I've been in the comics since I was listening to one of your podcasts a couple of days ago, Hassel and Monster, and you guys were talking about G1 toys and stuff like that, it's like I had posted something about, I think it was G1 Transformers, I think you were talking, or scale size, and I see you have a bunch of toys there in the background. I've been collecting comics since I remember my first comic book was, I want to tell you, it was the Zoo Crew, Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew, back in the early 80s, and I remember, I swear to God, it's a true story. I'll never forget this because I got my butt handed to me by my mom. I picked up a Frank Miller Wolverine #1, and I remember looking at it, and we're at this little store in a Spanish neighborhood, so Spanish people have their own concept of kicking the crap out of their kids and being okay with it. So I remember picking up this Wolverine issue #1 and walking through the store with it, and it was they're called bodegas, or a little market for Spanish people basically. And I walk out of the store with it, and my mom turns to me and goes, "Where did you get that?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I forgot to pay for it." And I got the beating of my life. And she drags me into the store and tells the manager, the owner, he comes over and she goes, "Tell him what you did." I'm like, I stole your comic book, man. I'm sorry. So that's my experience with comics when I was a kid, and then as I got older, introducing my daughters to comics, and then really being just kind of like an escape, the neighborhood I lived in was terrible. So we didn't have a lot of money, and comics for me were I learned how to read because of comics. I think I learned how to be a better person because of them, and as my daughters grew up, I introduced them to comics, and then now my daughter's actually an artist. She's a fantastic artist, just graduated college last year, and my little one is about to go to Juilliard, I hope in New York real soon, and all that creativity is just I think that comics are good for you. I think that they're good. So I figured, what better way to I think to honor myself and the people around me that have influenced me by making my own comics, right? So that's kind of been my take on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we want to ask you some more about the upcoming releases and what you're looking at, the Cyber Ronin and everything. But I wanted to ask too, since you brought it up right away, is what are your comic influences? What are some of the ones that you really, if you look back over your time, what's some of the comics that really influenced you to actually want to even get into creating them as well?
Yeah, I think for me, personally, superheroes that I've felt most relatable to, right, have been the Wolverines, the Spider-Mans, right? Because you put yourself into a position where my normal job is I'm an investigator, right? So I work as an investigator, and I help solve economic crimes. So I'm around bad people all day long. I investigate them, help put them away in jail. Not that I'm Batman or nothing, right? But So, but those have been some influences for me, like the right and the wrong, right? So Batman, especially the Spider-Mans, the Wolverine, because at the time being macho was cool, right? So the toxic
anti-hero.
masculinity, like the toxic masculinity thing, I know is taking a hit, but for me, those were big influences for me to begin even reading comics. And then getting into indie comics, Turtles. I mean, come on, Ninja Turtles, give me a break, dude. Like 4 turtles with nunchucks and swords running through the city, kicking the crap out of bad guys. like how much?
Where can you go wrong?
How could you go wrong with that, right? So for me, that was the beginning, and then I think that some of my influences now with Xyber Ronin, being involved in martial arts for a lot of my life, and then developing a character that for me was I've always felt like kind of out of place. Being Latino, I think that has a lot to do with it, and trying to make myself a place in society with people that maybe there's a lot of biases, a lot of people that may look at you differently. It still happens to me even with my career now. Creating a character that is from another planet, number one, right? It's a freaking rabbit, right? So you don't get any crazier and stranger than that, right?
No.
But he's trying to do right by where he's living, which is now in New York City, right? Kind of following on the footsteps of the Turtles, and then fighting crime. I mean, how much cooler can you get? I think than that. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know I've been stealing all the time, so Hassel looks like he wants to ask a question, so I'm gonna let him ask right now. Because
that was some of the thing I was kind of curious about, because I've seen the concept art of him and some of the other characters look amazing. I'm blown away by them. Each day when you guys post things and all. And tell us a little bit about your artist. I mean, are you cycling through several artists, or you have one guy that's going to be your primary illustrator? Or?
So again, this goes back to I'll go back to the paying it forward. I'm in a position in my life where I can afford to put a comic out, right? And I'm surrounded by people, fortunately for me, like my girl, who is a big, not only is she an influence, but she's also helping me promote this stuff. Like these shirts, these were her idea, and she paid for them. So if I could afford to do that, I'm going to pay it forward to other artists that may need commissions, right? And they're good, right? So I'm going to hire you and have you do a couple pinups for me. And if I could post that onto my page and say, hey, check this guy out. He's good, right? Like Sergio Medina, who I've hired to do a couple pages for me. I mean, the list goes on and on. Ariel Mendel, that guy's amazing, and then my main artist, and I'm going to butcher his name. He's Brazilian. Maiku Oliveira, right? And you would think that I would, I'd be better.
I was wondering how to pronounce that myself, because I've interacted with him a little bit through Facebook, and I'm just like, how do I say this?
Yeah, he's the main artist, and him and I, we went back and forth on email, and I said, hey man, I got a concept, and it's a rabbit, he's cybernetic, and I want to put it together. And he goes, all right, cool. He sends me some sketches. And I'm like, that's it. That's the drawing. That's what I want him to look like. And he's like, okay, let's go with it. And then so he's been the artist ever since. And then my colorist, he goes by the name of Saul Chavanas. He actually lives in Mexico. The guy's just super talented. So I'm like, I got to bring this guy on board also. And again, just paying it forward, and just Hugh Rockwood has been fantastic also. Hassel, I'm not sure if you've seen Hugh Rockwood stuff. He's helped me. And again, just trying to develop this Kickstarter, get all these artists on board with me, and then just run with it.
How much do you have kind of in the can, so to speak, as far as longevity wise? How long have you kind of mapped it out? Because I know a lot of creators, they map out at least 12 issues or so. How far? I'm sure you have a good bit, but I'm just curious.
So currently I have in my mind and in the can, so to speak, I have one issue down, right? And I'm waiting to have a full issue and a half done to promote the Kickstarter. Then to supplement that, I've also commissioned another artist to do a backup story, right? Along with this story, so that when I'm ready to put out issue 1, it's going to have a slew of pinups. It'll have a pinup book. It'll have it's gonna have a lot of fun stuff behind it. I'm ready to roll right into issue 2, with a backup story, and then 6 issues out, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go right now. 6 issues. You just got to continue to draw it. So I'm ready right now. 6 issues at least. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I wanted to ask if and I don't want to do any spoilers or anything, or because I know you're waiting to get everything out there into people's hands and stuff. But what can you tell us about the Xyber Ronin in the universe there, and some of the characters? Because I'm going to go back and say that I saw a bunch of the artwork on Instagram. I don't have Facebook because I'm not a very big social media person, but Instagram I have, and I got to tell you that Hyper Hair has been my favorite one so far.
Oh, you like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. Yeah. No, I gladly answer that. So let me just start off by saying, Hassel and I had this conversation. I think it was this morning. I'm not the biggest Instagram or Facebook guy in the world either. I use it for work to bust bad guys, because bad guys leave a trail, especially on Facebook. So I'm good there. And Twitter, bad guys are the worst. They'll tell you where they live and what they're doing. So it's the best for me. But in terms of being fluid with all those different types of social media, I'm terrible myself. So the character is, as I mentioned to you before, is from another planet, right? And I wanted to, and not to overstep myself here, because I know a lot of artists and creators will say, I created a whole universe or a whole galaxy of heroes, right? And here they are, and they're like shoving them in your face, and it's like, I think you're jumping a shark a bit there, when you're saying I created a universe, So I don't want to come off like saying I'm like, but in my mind, the way that I pictured it was, all right, so it's a different galaxy, right? So, and it's this conquering force of aliens, right? And they travel from planet to planet, kind of taking over, and they get to this one planet, and it's called Harion Prime, right? I'm thinking, okay, Hare, Hare. I'm just going to add an ION to the end, right? So it's Harion. Cool. It's a planet of rabbits, right? But essentially, the planet of rabbits, being in the martial arts, I've always been particular of like the Japanese arts, right? And their culture derives from like the samurai culture, right? But more modern, obviously, because it's in space. Gotcha. So and then this invading force comes into their planet. They're defending themselves, and then my main character, he's you'll see this in one of the other issues, other than the first issue. It's going to come up in the second issue. He's fighting off the invading force by himself, and he takes out like a bunch of these enemies. And the general takes note of him and goes, "Oh, this guy's pretty badass, right? Like he's killing all my dudes, right?" And then so they manage to take him captive. They put him aboard like the mothership, right? And they're looking for more soldiers to go out and conquer the rest of this universe. And since this guy is such a fantastic fighter, they implant him with this chip to control him. His body's already damaged from the battle, and they begin to reconstruct him cybernetically, right? And then they put him through a series of tests. Something happens to him during this process where he dies, and then he enters this void. I called it the Ember Void, and the reason it's Ember is because of the color, right? So it's the Ember Void, right? So he enters this Ember Void where he meets this god, and it's one of like his gods from his planet, right? Because he's from this other planet, and they worship their own gods. And this god says to him, "Hey, this isn't your time. I'm not gonna let you die. However, I am going to put you on a path of revenge, but in order to do that, you got to escape, but I'm going to do most of the work for you." And he burns out the chip in his head, so he's not controlled anymore. He escapes, and he falls into Earth, basically, in his ship. And the ship is called the Hutch, which is like, I guess, where rabbits sleep, right? So it's called the Hutch. So, all right, so he comes into Earth, he crash lands, and when he's on Earth, there's this other organization, your typical bad guy terrorist organization, right? That want to like rule the world kind of thing. And they find him, they track him as his ship lands on Earth, they take him captive. So now he's like, holy crap, like now I'm having to go through all this again. And then he manages to escape them as well. And now he's in the city, and he gets blamed for a series of crimes. And he's like, okay, I can't have that happening. And then that's when the first issue kind of takes off.
Man, that's really
it's cool. A lot. I know it's a lot to soak up, but
no, that sounds really interesting. I I'm sold already. So I know,
you.
there's many others that will be sold very quickly. We got to get some people to back this cause.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and as you say, it's a lot, but I'm a lifelong comic reader. My very first book I ever read when I was 3 years old, my grandmother gave me from the 1960s, a Superboy and Legion of Superheroes digest, one of the small Reader's Digest size ones they used to make, and that was the first book I learned how to read. So when you say it's a lot, it is, but as soon as you start talking, I'm like, okay, I can see all this now because I'm used to looking at that on the page.
You can picture it almost in your brain, so you can almost
as lifelong comic fans, you just you hear it, and start visualizing this entire scene. The question I have is, everyone when they read comics, you have a certain voice that as soon as you read certain characters. I mean, like when I read Batman, it's always, the animated series Conroy.
Sure. Yeah.
So who do you hear in your mind when you're writing Xyber Ronin? Who do you hear as the voice of your main character?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series, Raphael, I think, had like the raspy, like badass voice, right? Like he was like the rogue kind of guy. And I like that voice, that kind of emulate that voice, I guess, in my head is what I would hear. He's like that real rough around the edges kind of guy, but at the same time, he's a good guy, right? He's a good,
cool but rude.
Huh?
He's cool but rude.
He's cool but rude. There you go. He's the cool rude dude. Yeah, I remember that from like the animated series. Yeah, that's right. And like I didn't want to make him like a Conan, so to speak, right? Where he's just like Conan has his own like agenda, and I think that it's his own personal agenda to make himself to live through the world of Hyboria, right? This is more. I think he's more of like my character. Xyber Ronin is more of like just that he's a warrior that has a code of honor, right? And he has to, follow that code. And now that he's on Earth, he's going to help out the Earthlings do what they need to do, to be okay because of his fault. He came to Earth, and now he's bringing in the second issue. You'll see, and Monster, you were asking a question about the hyper hair, right? So
yeah.
There's a series of bounty hunters that come looking for him. At the end of issue 1, something happens with him where he releases this large amount of energy, Xyber Ronin does, and it alerts this alien force that essentially built him. It alerts them because it's such a powerful force. It's a blast. And then they're like, oh, well, we know where he is, so we're going to send in these bounty hunters to go get him. So in the beginning of issue 2, you'll see I created a character called Cyber, who's this bear, but he's like cybernetic.
I saw that one. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
That's
and he's
really
like,
great.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And then the way that it came out was fantastic. And then you'll have these other characters that are like space, police more or less, and they come to Earth also in that issue. And then you'll be introduced to them as well, and they kind of all fight. And there's some other stuff that happens on the second issue, and it kind of explores. I like the depth of the characters a lot also. And depth, I think, comes through circumstance. So you're faced with a circumstance as a person, how you deal with it builds your character, right? And it kind of shows the world what kind of person you are. So it's kind of what happens here is that he's faced with a few things, and it kind of builds on that perception of who Xyber Ronin is and the people around him. So I kind of like that mentality of building it from that perspective too. So
well, it's great layers you have going right there. I mean, you have him pretty much getting your revenge on his planet while becoming a protector of a foreign planet, and at the same time you have bounty hunters who are definitely evil, but then you have cops that probably aren't good or evil per se, so to speak, where they're just trying to nullify things, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's a great deal going on there. I mean, that sounds amazing.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, and then you'll have other stuff like in the background also going on. So just trying to add some depth to it. I'm not the master writer, but there's a lot of influences for me. Like you guys had something in my intro. I know you had written something about novice philosopher, right? So for me, like I'm really big on philosophy. It's helped me manage through a lot of stuff in my life. you know, a lot of, not to bore you guys, but a lot of like the ancient Stoic Greeks. I'm all about that stuff, man. Seneca and, you know, Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. I could read that stuff all day. And one of the quotes that the ancient philosophers, one of the things that they live by is like the 4 virtues, right? So it's, you know, it's being just a good person all around. So for me, like this character embodies all that, right? So as I'm writing it in my head, I'm like, oh, well, I want this guy to be that kind of character where he embodies those 4 virtues, you know, and he's just a good dude, you know, he's just a good guy, you know, and I don't want him to be like the Conan type, you know. I want him to be more like, you know, I remember as a kid, Monster, you know, to say bring up something you mentioned earlier when you were a kid reading comics. Now that I think about it, my first comic book was sneaking into my parents' bedroom. My dad's a Marine, by the way, so my dad didn't sleep on the bed. He slept on the floor most of the time because he went through the Vietnam War and he was like kind of, you know, he was dealing with a lot of stuff. Sneaking into my parents' bedroom, crawling on the floor, and pulling out my dad's Conan magazines out of the drawer that he had, and he stashed them away. Drawn by John Buscema, by the way. And
Yes.
I'd flip through those magazines, going, "Oh my God, like this is amazing!" You know, like how did my dad leave this out, like for me to find? You know, what's going on here? You know, but and then, you know, modeling a lot of my life after all those heroes that I had. So
awesome. So if we switch gears for just a second, I wanted to ask you kind of what's the process? What was the process you went through to start creating all this and to putting pen to paper, I guess? Because, you know, Hassel and I joke around a lot of times, like, what would we do if we could write one, but we never stop long enough or have enough, at least for me, I can't say I have enough common sense to sit down and write a book anyway.
We fleshed out a lot of ideas between, you know, shooting the shit.
But it never goes any further than that.
Yeah.
yeah, it's, you know, so all of us on this call, I think we have 40-hour plus work weeks, right? So, you know, it can be challenging. Yeah, it can be challenging. So I think that for me, you know, I journal a lot, and I'll journal my thoughts, and I'll write down what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. I'll write down quotes during the course of the day. Not to sound corny, but it just helps me in my mind. I'll jot down positive quotes, you know, especially from like, you know, ancient philosophers and stuff, and I'll take note of those things. So the transition over into writing didn't come easy, right? Because you're in front of your computer, you're tired as heck from the day, right? You're beat up. But when you start putting your thoughts onto paper, you write for 100 hours a week, you'll get a good 2-3 hours out of that of solid writing. And I don't know if that makes sense. You just write and write and write and write until stuff starts to make sense to you. So for me personally, it was just writing, man, just getting in front of a computer and just writing my thoughts, and then breaking those thoughts down into a process and saying, here's what I want the first issue to sound like. This is what I want the whole story to sound like. It's a long process, but at the end of the day, when you see your book in your hand, you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. So it worked out pretty well.
Very satisfying, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, it's very satisfying. It's, you know, I have 100 ideas. Hassel, I was texting you the other day, or I was messaging you, and I'm like, oh man, I got a bunch of horror stories that I want to, I'm like, you know, I love horror, man. You know, it's something I would love to write a horror comic at some point in time in my life. You know, just a lot of ideas. You just have to be focused on one at a time.
Yeah, when you messaged me that day and you was like, hey, I got a few ideas, I'm gonna run by you, and I was like, hey, I'm excited already, though. So when you're ready, you shoot them over.
Yeah, you got it, man. Absolutely, you know it.
That's pretty cool. So how did you get linked up with the different artists you're working on? I'm not even going to try to say the name because I know I'll butcher it. I apologize, but I have one dialect and it's Southern, and it doesn't take care of a lot of others. What's bad is I actually, from work, I have some friends who live in Sao Paulo, Brazil and stuff, and I talk to them all the time, but I'm like, there's a lot of times they tell me, you have to slow down because I didn't understand anything you just said.
Yeah, you know, for me, whenever I'm like designing something, I think as I write it, right, I want to see a certain style to it. There's a certain style to every story. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. This is the way I see it in my head. Yeah, like when you say Superman, right? So there's been just a plethora of artists that have drawn Superman over the 75 years that he's been around. And then there's certain ones that I'll say, oh, okay, well, I like this art better. It's more mentally and visually stimulating for me, right? So when you walk into a comic store, and you see a cover and you're like, oh, this cover is cool, right? You don't look at the book and go, whatever's inside that book must be great, so I'm going to buy it without looking at it, right? The cover's got to catch you first. And then the art has to match, in my brain, the artist behind it. So for Xyber Ronin in particular, I got on Facebook and I got on Pinterest, not Pinterest, sorry, Reddit, artists, right? There's artists that post stuff on there. Yeah. Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, and then there's, digital webbing. There's a bunch of different platforms that you can look for artists for. I spent some time looking to try to find the right artist for it. It takes time to find the right artist. And then when I found Maiku, I was like, oh, this guy's style is great. And for me, personality goes a long way also. Because Monster, if you're an artist and I write you and I go, hey, man, I'm interested in doing a book with you. And you go, okay, cool, right? And then I go, oh, okay, well, what's your page rate? And you just give it to me. It's like, well, dude, I want some more interaction. This is the guy I'm going into business.
You have to have a relationship between the two of you.
You gotta be in sync, right? Hassel, I think you said the other day, you were like, oh, well, great minds think alike. I mean, you're right. Like, I need someone that's gonna push my stuff, because essentially it's his stuff too, right? It's our stuff.
Yeah.
I need someone that's gonna, you gotta have a personality behind it. You can't just be like, yeah, well, here's your stuff. Good luck. And then you need to have a certain personality behind it to say, all right, this is my guy. He's good. He's affordable. He's intelligent. And his personality is just, it's big. He's good to get out there and want to push your stuff with you, because at the end of the day, it's all our success. It's not just mine. He's already gotten, Maiku has gotten, I push stuff to him all the time. People to him all the time. Hey, who's your artist? I go, dude, look this guy up now. He's amazing. He's honest. He's fast. He takes PayPal. He's a real, real good dude that you can just have a conversation with, and boom, he gets work. So we all win at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hassel, you look like you're fixing to ask something, unless I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just taking it all in, because I'm just, I love to hear the creative process behind all this stuff. Like me and Monster and a few of our other buddies, that we've had some on the show, some not. For years, off and on, we've sketched things out, or like Monster would come up with an idea for a book, and like especially when we were probably in high school, we were all, oh man, we thought we had big aspirations. Monster would flesh out an idea for something, and I'd sketch a few things, and our buddy Josh would sketch a few things, and so we love to talk with creators who are actually getting their things out there, because we didn't have the maybe the guts or the fortitude to go ahead and push it through all the way. Yeah. We just kind of get 80% through and then say, okay, you guys are doing it. So it's amazing to talk to guys that are getting it out there.
No, that's okay, man. It's all right to it's okay to get as far as maybe where you've gotten. And then I think for me, it's a famous coach, and I can't remember his name. Now you have to forgive me, but he said, hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. And I'm a big believer in that. So I may not be the most talented guy in the world, but I'm going to hustle to get all my stuff out when I want to get it out, right? And you got to have like there needs to be a certain drive behind that, right? So like, I'm going to surround myself with people like you guys and the people that I work with who are, number one, better than I am, right? at doing this kind of stuff, right? Because you want to always be, if someone ever says to you, be the smartest guy in the room, then you're not doing something right. You want everyone around you to be the smartest people in the room, right? So that's what I want to be. I want to be around the guys that are better than I am at this stuff, so that am not only learning from them, but I'm feeding off their mojo, right? And what they got to show. So 80%, that's not bad, Hassel. You're already half of it, man. And then it's just a matter of finding someone else and say, hey man, what do you think about this? And running it by him and saying, can you help me with this part of this, right? And asking for that help. And then there's nothing wrong with that. I'm terrible at asking for help, but I'm learning. I'm learning, man. I'm learning that
that's a strong male trait sometimes. The best of us suffer from it.
Dude, tell me about it. Having a Marine Latino dad, you don't got to tell me, man. So
I can imagine.
You don't got to tell me, man. But so yeah, not to be long-winded, but that's pretty much how you start, and then you just live it, man. You live, breathe. Comics. I obviously have other hobbies that I do, but sometimes stuff takes a back burner to it. I'm big into fitness. I'm big into, spending time with my family, all that stuff. But sometimes this takes a back seat. I love horror stuff, dude. Listen, we watch horror films every night of the week. Literally. That's why when I said numbed out horror fan, because I'm numbed out, dude. There's nothing nothing shocks me anymore. But sometimes that takes a back seat, and I gotta sit and write. So
understandable. So you mentioned you have a lot. Do you still collect any comics today? Any not necessarily mainstream, but any comics in particular that you really enjoy?
Yeah, I think comics for me, I think recently I'm more into the indie stuff. I think there are still some good reads out there. Not to make a long-winded answer out of it, but I like reading trades, Monster. I like going back and picking up. I can show you now a handful of trades that I have from just wanting to collect an entire row or entire issue of something. And I'll hit a comic store and I look for old stuff, man. I don't even look for any stuff that's on the wall now. I like a lot of the older books and
same here.
Yeah, man. It's just like I think as we get older, also, I think that a lot of the things that may have interested us at one time, we read now. Like you were talking Gen 1 Transformers. You watch that nowadays, and you're like, man, what did I see in this? The art isn't the
Some
greatest.
episodes are tougher than others to stomach.
Yeah, but I'll sit through it just because it was a love of mine as a kid, So like I'll sit through it still, but so not one thing in particular, man. I just kind of I'm a big Turtles fan. I'm a big I'll still read a lot of Wolverine stuff. A lot of the stuff when I was a kid, I still love it.
Cool. Yeah, I have a huge trade collection and a lot of the new stuff right now. You'll hear us talk about it. I buy a lot of stuff and I kind of feel obligated to read it at this point, but there's only like one or two titles that I'm like, oh, I really look forward to reading this now.
What do you like to read? What do you guys like to pick up?
Well, maybe I like the older stuff, like what you were saying, because at one point, Stan Lee done a great job of getting messages out there without getting too political.
Agreed.
And somewhere along the way, they kind of just lost that method because Stan Lee, he could put the X-Men out there and basically hammer home a message about racism that people wasn't even knowing they were getting, or Peter Parker, who had the worst look ever, and somehow he still chose to be the hero of the story. The Fantastic Four family. I mean, you had these stories, and I mean, he was hammering home values and messages without hitting certain things, and they've kind of lost a lot of that to me. So, I still pick up Spider-Man right now. That's
love Spider-Man.
That's about it.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff.
That's one of the two books that I'm still enjoying. I mean, I like I said, I pick up a lot of stuff, but my two right now are Spider-Man and more for nostalgia and anything. And there's no political stuff really inside of it, but I'd love to pick up the current Power Ranger runs that Boom Studios are doing because there is no political stuff, and there is just straight 90s goodness.
It is straight 90s goodness.
Ninja ass kicking. That's all you need.
A lot of butt kicking. That's all I need. There was an issue of Spider-Man. I think I actually got teary-eyed when I read this as a kid. It was the issue where Spider-Man visits this kid that's going to die. The kid doesn't know he's going to die, right? Yeah, and he visits him and he pulls his mask off and he's like, hey, I'm Peter Parker, and he's like, and then he leaves there and the kid ends up passing away. Come on, like, when was the last time you read something like that? I mean, I don't know. I can't think of it. When was the last time you picked up a book like that?
Yeah, I know the one in particular you're talking about. I may still have it. I used to have, and just as an aside, I used to have this big storage shelter shed, whatever you want to call it, at my grandparents' house, and it was about, I say big, it was about 300 square feet, but that thing was filled from floor to ceiling with boxes of comics. Tornado took some of it. Tornado took some of it away, but a lot of it's still around. Yeah.
I was talking to another person, another big influence of mine is Stephen Butler. He's all over Facebook. This guy he used to draw Spider-Man. He's an ex-Marvel artist. Still draws for them on occasion. Him and I have, I would say the guy's like a mentor of mine. Him and I have deep dialogue at least once a day, about like just life in general, So he's not only an artist that drew Spider-Man at one time, but he's just a good dude, So like just talking to people like that also, it's like it's just influential for me, like to again, to surround myself with those kinds of people who are just good people that know about comics and value that stuff. Hassle, like you're saying, you're right, man. Like I don't want to listen. Don't push your views on me through a comic, right? Like let it be what it is, man. It's a person that's, Peter Parker. Listen, Logan. I'll give you in my opinion, Logan. Talk about being down in your luck. Like that character had been through it all. So what's the appeal for me as a man, right? Is here's a dude that's been through so many things in his life, didn't know who he really was imbued with this this skeleton that was unbreakable with these claws, and he's only 5 foot something tall. It's like, but he's mean as hell, right? And he just goes through his whole life, and he's just had it rough, but he still perseveres, and he's still the hero. So like, how could you beat that, man? That's great stuff. No politics, no pushing your agenda on me or who's whatever classification you want to say nowadays. I don't give a crap, but he's just a dude going through life being a hero. How could you beat that? So, to me, those
a Monster has discussed this a few times. So I love to get your take on it. Did you find Wolverine more interesting when he was just Logan versus knowing he's James, like before he got the memory back?
No, I liked him better before. I liked him better. I liked him better when he was. That's it, man. Like I was reading Sam Keith's Wolverine, where he meets Cyber. He meets Cyber, and he's like, he climbs up the side of this wall with his claws, and he gets into the top of where Cyber's hiding. And he's like, oh, I recognize that scent. And then Cyber comes out. He's like, oh crap, and he takes off running. Right? I'm like, whoa, what could scare Wolverine? You're reading this, and you're like, this guy is like the baddest dude on earth. Like, what could scare him? And that whole run, you're like, oh, that's what scared him. All right, cool, I get it, right? But for me, it was that mysteriousness. You're right, of like, who is he? Why is he such a badass? Why does he have these? Weapon X by who was it? Who drew Weapon X? Walt Simonson?
I believe so. And then, oh man, who was writing that?
It was like a 12-issue miniseries, right?
Did Portacio do any of the art on that too?
No. I think it was. I want to say it was Simonson. This is back in the 90s. It was the Weapon X run where it was showing him from beginning to end of how he got how he was chosen for the Weapon X project.
That was the one that had the famous yellow cover that looked like a vanilla envelope or vanilla folder that had the slashes through it and all that.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Marvel Comics Presents, where they were telling Weapon X stories every issue.
I remember that too. Yeah, I remember that also. So, but getting more into the character and learning more about him was just, again, it's an influence for me. For Xyber Ronin, I think that it's, again, taking a character and saying, all right, I'm going to take you from your homeland. I'm going to strip your body and make your mind, work differently, and I'm going to imbue you with these abilities. And now we've killed your whole planet off, and now you're a hero. Like here you go. Like what kind of effect would that have on a person, right? So that's kind of what I was thinking when writing the character. It was a big influence for me. Was Wolverine.
Yeah, and you're right. I was looking it up while you were talking. Simonson and Barry Windsor Smith did some of it.
Barry Smith. There you go, man. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, I had to look it up because it was bugging me. Now I was like,
thank you.
I literally see it, but you're just like, holy shit.
BWS, Barry Windsor Smith. Yeah, there you go. That's great stuff. You can't beat that stuff nowadays, man. That's just classic writing. Classic Marvel.
Yeah, so I know we promised we wouldn't keep you too long because I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but I wanted to ask you if you could tell us a little bit more details about the upcoming Kickstarter, and if you have anything set up for that or what the details are on it.
Yeah, so I plan on launching at the end of the month. Not having been a part of a Kickstarter project myself, but seeing other people that I know go through trials and tribulations with it, I want to make sure that I'm handling it correctly and I'm not taking on too much workload. The idea is a launch by the end of the month. I'll do a pre-launch, obviously, beforehand. I'll ask people on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or wherever else I can get my hands on. It's limited on the outreach of people that you can, it's a platform, right? Social media is a platform. And as many people as you get to be a fan of yours or to be interested in doing what you're doing, reading what you're doing can be difficult because, again, you're limited to a platform of social media. So, My idea is to continue building on these pinups and to then eventually launch at the end of the month. But I want to have enough content so that, you know, like I see some Kickstarters and people are like, oh, give me $20 and I'll send you issue 1. And you're like, what? $20? Like, what's that? You know, what do you mean? Like, it doesn't cost that much money to print the book, you know, and then you're going to ship it. So I want to be fair also. I want to say fair, but I need to make money and recoup my money at the end of the day also, right? So while it's not about the money, it's also about me being able to put out more content later on, you know. So that's part of it. So the idea is that by the end of this month, I'll have the Kickstarter ready to launch, and then it'll be fun. You know, like I have some original pinups by Stephen Butler, the guy I was telling you he drew from Marvel. He's agreed to sign some stuff for me, and then give it as a tier. So there's original pinup stuff in there. There's pinup books. There's cards. There's shirts. It'll be a lot of fun by the time I'm done with it. It won't be just, you know, your average Kickstarter. I shouldn't say average, but it'll be good. By the time I'm finished with it, I think people will feel like they're getting a bang for their buck. And then I wrote a really touching intro to it. When you're able to go onto the page, I'll send it to you guys. You guys can read it. But it talks about, my introduction talks about, you know, my daughters when they were little and how they would play superhero, right? So, you know, I remember putting a cape around their necks and saying, you know, go be a good guy, you know, and then they would go and rescue imaginary animals, right? You know, like the stuffed animals around the house. And I really put a lot of heart and soul into that introduction. And it actually took me back to when they were little, and it kind of was nostalgic and teary-eyed for a moment. You know, I'm not afraid to say that, but so it just the introduction itself will give you some insight into how I feel about comics and how they've changed me and what they've done for me in my life. So I think the introduction alone is a hook, but it comes from the heart. So let's just put it that way.
Cool.
And knowing that as a fan, that you love to invest in that sort of thing. When you know the creator is just as passionate as you are about what you're reading, it's great.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, because to Hassel's point, as soon as you start the Kickstarter, I'm going to try and be the first person to donate to it, because I want to be a part of it, right? And, and it sounds awesome. And
so I'm sensing a competition here, Monster. Like, who's going to be first? So
no, you guys don't.
It'll be my luck that he'll get there before I do, just so he can rub it in, because I'll be somewhere for work, traveling or something, and he'll never let it go.
Man. I appreciate you guys just even having me on the call, man. That's having me on this call today. That's more than enough. But I appreciate you guys, you know, even taking the time.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to ask you too is, as you're going along with this and you're getting further into the Kickstarter and the Kickstarter's going on, we're hoping that maybe you can send us a few updates across, you know, the time frame of that's going on, and maybe even come back on again before the end of the Kickstarter, or maybe even at the beginning, depending on your schedule and ours. And we'd love to have you back on and talk about it some more. And I'm not trying to rush you off now. I just wanted to bring that up before I forget it, because, like I said, my brain is a little fried after today.
No, don't even sweat it, man. I meant that with all sincerity. You know, I don't know how much it'll do by having a plug for you guys in there, but, you know, paying it forward, man. So if you guys want to plug in there, just I'm more than willing to put in something that says, you know, your information on there. So
definitely means a lot to us. You know,
yeah, man, of course, bro. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've had a wonderful time, you know, talking to you about it. I can sit here and pick your brain for hours, but I do know we did promise to not take up too much of your time, because I know it's family time. It's the evening for you, and
I mean, this man's got horror movies to watch.
I got a ton of horror films to watch. I've watched all of them. I find B ones, man, that I'm like, this movie's terrible, but I'm gonna watch it anyway because it's I'm gonna put her through it too. She's like, oh my god, this is terrible. I'm like, I know, but just watch it. So I don't care, man.
Some of them are so bad you can't help but just laugh, and it's just like, oh, this is terrible.
Oh man, I was watching a Pickaxe the other day. I think I actually bought it. It was like $4. I bought it's the hacker slasher film Pickaxe. The guy actually uses the pickaxe to kill people with. It is god awful. I mean, but I watched it. It was great. You know, so I watched it.
I had a guy at work trying to send me on a trauma film today, and I was like, I don't know. But
yeah, man. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, man. And it's been my pleasure to be on here with you guys. So thank you.
We appreciate you coming on. It's been all our pleasure, especially, like I said, we get to pick your brain about this stuff, because I think we found our outlet is probably going to be more podcasting than actually writing a comic. But hey, that was one of the things we always love to do, and we still debate stuff. But again, we appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us, and hopefully we'll get to have you back again. I mean, you may blow up so much we may not be cool enough for you.
If we forgot all about the nerdy Manroom one day.
No, man, with both your backgrounds and knowing you guys are both horror fans and you guys are awesome dudes, I'm here, man. Just let me know whatever you guys need from me. So
we appreciate it, and yeah, we'll reach out to you because we definitely want to share updates to the Kickstarters. You're getting into it, and we'd definitely love to have you back on. And yeah, Hassel, I didn't know if you had any more questions. Sorry, I know I kind of. I didn't want to take the man's time too much.
Between social media, so I mean, I pick his brain all the time. So like I said, we greatly appreciate you coming aboard today and getting your word out there. And that's how we'd love to have you back, especially closer to time to kick off and in the middle of the thing to get an update. And like we discussed, our sponsor, he's wanting to get some of your prints in the store so that we can spread the word, because he does a big thing about unity through community, and he's a big believer in the indie scene. So I mean, we'd love to.
I'm working on that as we speak. I'm working on getting you guys some prints. It's just a matter of I have to attach the logo onto the prints, and I'll print them and send them to you. So
yeah, and I think Hassel, you made me think of one other question I wanted to ask before we signed off is because I don't think we asked this, but the comic, you're going to do it as a printed page, or is it only going to be a Comixology online virtual sort of thing, or I didn't know which way you were leaning, or if you're going for both on that.
Yeah, I think I don't know a lot about Comixology. I know that that a lot of indie folks will use that as an outlet of theirs. And for now, Monster, the idea is that anywhere that I can get it out, Comixology is awesome. I can send copies myself if someone wants to buy them for me. Obviously, as we get a little closer, I'll have more information on how to do all those things. But the idea is just to spread the word and get as many people interested in being able to sell it from their venue, whether it's Comixology or some of the other comic sites that are available out there. And I can't think of them right now, but yeah, so.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna read it either way. I just need to figure out where to get it at.
I'm old school. I'm like Stan Lee. I mean, a boob's nice on the screen, but I want it in my hand. So my comics are the same way.
I love the physical stuff, man. I love I love having a copy in my hand and being able to go back and pick it up and bend it and read it and look at it. I love that too. So just like boobs. So I'm joking. So.
Cool. Well, we appreciate it, sir.
Yes,
and we won't hold you up too much longer here. We know you got some horror movies to go enjoy, but
thank you guys.
Thanks for coming on, and we sincerely appreciate it.
All right, you guys, be well, be safe, okay?
Thanks, sir. You
too. Later, guys. All right, see you.
Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed the interview, and again, we thank Mr. Garcia for coming on with us. Great guy, wonderful interview, fun to talk to. We had we could have went on for hours, but we had to stop ourselves so we didn't take up all of his time, because he does have a life outside of us. Even though sometimes we think the universe revolves around us, it does sadly does not.
If we hadn't, we'd have took up at least another hour and just chopped it up with him. He's a fantastic guy. I pestered the shit out of him on Instagram. He's very accessible. People reach out to him on Facebook, Instagram. He's on both, and he's very accessible. He'd love to talk to you people. And like I said, the art on there is amazing, and his storytelling in itself speaks for itself.
Yeah, and as we talked in the interview that you saw, he's going to come back on with us again when we get closer to the Kickstarter kicking off, and give us some updates as it goes along. So you'll get more information as well, and we'll share it as soon as we hear it. But with that, let's jump into our Nerd Out segment of the show. And for those of you that is the first time here, this is the section where we kind of ask each other random questions usually about the topic of the day and what we've been talking about, and we kind of put each other on the spot to answer without any forethought or planning or preparation. So we're going to kick that off, but feel free that if you want to jump in on the conversation and you want to add your answer to our question, or you just want to expand on something we said, do it in the comment section below. We'd love to interact with you, so feel free to jump in on it. And Hassel, I don't remember who went first last time, and I know we just did this last week, but the days are running together at this point.
Yeah, they do. It's been a busy couple of days. I'll shoot. I'll go first. So
okay.
In the light of everything we just discussed here, we discussed how with Mr. Garcia, that several times you and I and some of our friends, we've come up with various ideas for comic books of ourselves. So okay, let's say right now today, You could start a title. You pick the character. You don't. Are you okay? Creator own any character of your own, and what artist?
Okay, so we're saying,
And you can choose a legendary artist, past, present, so forth, so on.
so you're saying what character would I want? What character that exists that I want to write, or just because I'm trying to figure out exactly what you were asking?
Well, would you go creator owned, like with an idea, and you don't even have to delve into who the character will be, or is there a particular established character with a legendary artist of your choosing at a particular brand?
I guess I would probably go to. I think I'd like to do a established character and actually tell some new stories with them. Probably I'd choose. I'm torn. I don't know if I want to choose Green Lantern or Flash, but I know I want the artist to be Jim Lee.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Asking.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what story I'd tell, but I think that's the route I'd go.
That could be fun. That could be fun. Well, most people that know me are going to just speculate. They're going to know I want to do Spider-Man something fierce. And as much as I would love to do a Spider-Man with Sal Buscema, I'm going to avoid. I'm going off the beaten path. And I'm going to go with something that you and I kicked around a few years ago. Probably, 10 or 15 at this point. And it's going to be a crossover with the Power Rangers and the Green Lantern Corps.
I almost went
and Ethan Van Sciver is my artist. And we do the combination of, the various corps with the various Rangers. And Lord Zed is my villain, and he's going to be a serious evil Lord Zed, not the way he started out.
Yeah, the way he is currently in the books.
Yes, I mean, he's going to be a very evil, sadistic, and I think Ethan Van Sciver could just nail that. And I wanted to go Jim Lee, you rascal. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking Mark Silvestri too. He's so close to. He's so close to Jim, though.
You know what my secondary would have been, though? And unfortunately, he's passed away, but Michael Turner.
Oh, God, he was so good.
Yeah. His Flash was amazing. So my question for you, and it's coming off something very similar, but since we were talking about independent comic creators and making your own ideas, if you can make any sort of independent comic, what would the major plot be? You don't have to have names and all that stuff here, but what would be the overarching plot? And it has to be original characters. This can't be, like we were just talking, it can be characters that exist, but let's talk about original. What would be your original idea?
Ooh, that's a toughie.
It is. It took me a while to come up with my own answer.
Something I've always kind of bounced around with is the notion or the idea where some random regular Joe, is selected by some omnipresent being to be their champion. And they're embodied with power, and the powers can be whatever. But they're embodied to be the power, and this person is wanting to. It's more of a collector type deal, or the games master, where he wants to see, like he is in competition with someone else and wants to see if he embodies the regular Joe with the ultimate power, what does he do? Does he become a champion for good? Does he become a champion for evil and only worry about self-preservation and, rich fame, so forth and so on, ruling the world type deal? Or does he become a champion for mankind? I think that could be a really interesting story.
That would be. I thought about this, and then I came back to an idea that I had, probably back when we were in high school, and I never fleshed it out any further. But, I always had this idea of what if you do a team superhero book, but in this team book, say you start out with a all-powerful superhero who's, for lack of a better term, your Superman or your Superwoman of your universe. Whether it's male or female doesn't matter, but they sacrifice themselves to save the world, and in doing so, it starts to kill them so that they can extend their power out to someone else to take, but they can't give all of their powers to one person. So while you've got this person who might have been flying around, they've got super strength, they're invulnerable, heat vision, lasers, whatever they have, they can't give all those aspects of their powers to one person, so they have to give them out to multiple people. Ooh. So a team, and it could be, I think it would be more interesting if it's strangers, but also if it was a team of people who knew each other, but they knew each other in passing, or were, even if they were friends with you, you don't always work with all your friends, right? So how well will they be able to take that power and work as a team? Because you can't have, and each one has to have a weakness, right? So there's a certain point to their powers can go this far to help them, but the person who's super strong might not have invulnerability. So while they might be throwing a car at you, you shoot them, they're taking damage. Yeah. But then you've got to have somebody around who can have the healing aspect of the powers, and maybe they can quickly heal themselves, but this is a very slow healing process, or slower, but faster than a normal person for them to heal someone else in the team. But it inflicts that same wound upon them, sort of thing, right? So how would a team of people who got the power of the ultimate superhero of your universe fare as a team when each one is an individual person and then they have to work together?
I like that, to be honest, especially like the dichotomy of, not so much strangers, but maybe not a friends group. Like, it's too easy when it's like the Power Rangers where they're all somewhat friends.
Yeah.
It's too easy.
Yeah.
But if you get just a group of guys that know or guys, gals, equality, but you get a group of people together that, they vaguely know each other, but they might not be the best of friends. Like two people may be clicked up here. You might have one or two here, then you got your outsider, and then nobody likes this one asshole, and they got to work together. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I thought. I think originally when I had that idea back in high school, it was like friends because we were playing around ideas with each other, right? But at this point, it's like that makes sense, but it makes more sense for them to be slightly separated from each other, because it's like, okay, I don't know how, if it's your closest friend in the world and you're the healer and you got to take the damage they took, you're more apt to take that than somebody's like, yeah, man, I know you, but I don't know you like that.
Yeah, it's like if you take the powers of Superman or Martian Manhunter and divide them up within a group of people, your best friend, you'll take the bullet from him and try to heal him up to get him back on his feet to do so forth and so on. But if it's little Jody down the road who's been breaking eggs and you're not real fond of little Jody because he broke your eggs at some point, do you take the bullet for him?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
But at the end of the day, you may need his super speed or his, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You'd have to figure out how many characters.
Self-preservation. I mean, I could be around, make a really interesting read. That's going to be on some gold there, Monster. You might need to reach out to Mr. Garcia and see what you guys can do.
I would definitely need his skills, because while I can plot stuff, I'm not real good at fleshing out the rest of it. I'll give you the overview of the plot, but writing the in-between and the dialogue is not my specialty at all. Dialogue is like, hey, how are you?
I feel you on that, brother.
But with that, I think that takes care of the show for today. Remember, everybody, check out our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles, for all your nerdy needs. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com, on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles, and in their store in Tifton, Georgia. Help them support their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. Hassel, I don't think we even discussed all the giveaway stuff this week. Did you have anything prepared, or was that something we were doing?
I do, actually. I do. And, thanks to the Zone for, giving us this stuff to, get out to you guys. And we've had a blessing of people who have supported us through, YouTube, Twitter, through Instagram, Facebook. Monster stays really busy editing and doing the producer role of this, so I try to keep the social media side going. And you guys, you're a blessing. So anyone listening, don't think that your voice isn't heard. Like, click, subscribe, share. Every share helps. But since Mr. Garcia's book is a Xyber Ronin, it is a rabbit from another universe, I decided, why not go with some characters who are also super animals? So with that being said, we have a Mighty Mouse $1 million bill and underdog $1 million meal. And like always, you get a sweet Nerdy Manroom Show logo sticker. So with that being said, going between the platforms, it was pretty tough. A lot of you guys, you know, you blow us up and you love our stuff, and we're so thankful for everything. And it's random. We go back and forth. But with that being said, the winner of this week, and I'm going to butcher the stew out of your name. You follow us on Instagram, but it is Orchestra. I think that's how that's said. It seems to be Spanish. But you are our winner on Instagram. I'll reach out to you and we'll converse somehow and get you your stuff. But we're thankful for you guys' support and love and help. And please continue and help us out.
Yeah, and along those same lines, we want to make sure we share again too. Everybody check out Daniel Garcia's pages on Facebook at Daniel Garcia and on Instagram at D Garcia Comics. Stay tuned there and here for future updates on his upcoming upcoming Kickstarter and the rest of his projects. We'll share everything we get as soon as we get it. But with that should bring us to a close today. Hassel, where can they find us at?
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Nerdy Manroom Show. We approachable on either one of those. You can find us on Twitter, Nerdy MR Show. And as the obvious says, we are on YouTube for this very show here at the Nerdy Manroom Show.
Yeah, and remember, if you enjoyed this video or any of our other content, give us a like, subscribe, comment, or share, as that does enter you into the chance to win the prizes that we release each week. And normally this is where we tell you what we're going to do next time, but to be honest with you, we're going to have to skip a week. I will be out of town and unavailable. We will come back in 2 weeks, and we haven't decided exactly what topic we're going to work on just yet. So
I had one pop into my brain late this afternoon, Monster, and I meant to discuss it with you.
Let's preface that by saying I was late to the show this week.
You were. I'm not going to bash you.
Yeah, I got held up at work, so we were
it
about
was my internet,
45 minutes. We were about 45 minutes late starting, so we didn't get to our normal discussion beforehand. But what was your topic you were saying? Because I think I overwrote you there while you were talking.
How about G.I. Joe, the Real American Hero? That
sounds perfect.
We haven't hit the Joes yet. We've given some Transformers some love. We've comic books some love, horror. I think it's time to give the old Joe a little love.
Sounds like a good plan. But we will be back in 2 weeks with that. Until then, live like a Ronin and support your independent comic book creators.